Well today, Daniela?
I am living for Virginia's glasses, by the way. Girl, you look gorgeous in those glasses.
What's going on? Hello, people. Welcome. If you want to turn your cameras on, please do. If you don't, we'll just assume you're horribly ugly, or maybe just hiding, which is fine. I have those moves, those days. And if you want to rename yourself where you are in the world, then we will know that you're not from Portland and we can relax. So, where are you on the planet? If you want to put that in your name, I'm in Moscow. That's how you pronounce it, America. Moscow. Yeah, not Moscow. All right.
Who says Moscow?
Moscow. That's what Americans say. They say it weird. Moscow.
Moscow.
Yeah, you said it wrong. So actually, we're all saying it wrong because it's Moskva. But I blame Colin. Hey, Bibi, nice to see you. Hey, Tracy, nice to see you again. David rocking the beard. I think you beat me best beard so far. Yeah, this is going to be a beard competition. It always is. If people think it's not a beard competition ever, they're wrong. Oh, Daniela, where's your beard? Ooh. Anyone seen any good sessions today? Well, I've been with the Dutch. The Mark Mel metal band. This is dangerous. Normally, me and Mel have supervision. And this is like leaving the mafia in charge of a mental patient or something like that. Like, I don't know who's, that's just, it's not good. It's not good.
It's okay. It's okay. I can rein it in if necessary.
No, let's not. Let's just rein it out. Like, I've just done a corporate job. So after I've done a corporate job, it's like.
Should I get naked? Is that what we're doing?
Bacon? What?
I said, should I get naked or bacon? Whatever.
You're my bacon. You're my bacon. Like, I know, that's the cutest thing I can say. Cecilia, nice to see you. Jin, just have more fun. We know it's true. And is it Maida? Ms. Aram? Nice to meet you. Hello, where are you in the world? Michelle's from Portland. I can't be mean about Portland. Someone from Portland's here. I've never been to Portland. It might be perfectly nice. I heard it's got good coffee shops.
Portland, Oregon?
Yeah.
I love Portland, Oregon. I almost moved to Portland with my ex-husband, but thankfully I got a divorce, so I'm fine.
Okay, good. I'm glad you got a divorce because I'm going to marry.
If anybody hasn't done it yet, highly recommend. You'll feel amazing.
New York. Yeah, everyone. This is good advice here. Just everyone get divorced, no matter what.
Oh my God.
Relationships are. Don't take our advice today.
You'll feel so light. It's incredible. It's like the best spa treatment ever.
I like my wife. What are you talking about? Anyway, if I divorced my wife, she'd kill me in my sleep. Okay. Anyone triggered? Hello, Fabia. Hello, Amanda. So we're gonna have to start in a minute. Okay, who's gonna pretend to be grown up first? Me or you, Mel?
I'm very good at good at pretending, so I can be the grown up.
You nail it down at the beginning, and then we'll swap. We'll catch everyone out.
Sounds good. I like it.
We're gonna start in 1 minute. So if you need tea or to urinate, go smoke some crack, anything, whatever you need, whatever gets you through the day, you've got 1 minute. Oh, I tell a lie, we're starting now. Who's hosting us? Virginia? Are you the grown-up?
I am the grown-up.
Go for it.
So hello, everybody, and welcome to this session about traumatic growth, how to turn your trauma into superpowers. And we've got the right people to tell us that, Mr. Mark Walsh, here, who knows a few things since he has worked in 5 war zones. He's worked with street kids, with the Russian mafia, with the Russian LGBTQ community, with police, with aid workers, with 3 militaries, and has been sober for 14 years. So
that'll do. Let's introduce Mel, the body witch, the legend, she's like one of the weirdest wise people I know. I absolutely love her to bits, and together we are double trouble. So, how's that? Good intro? In the red corner.
I think that's enough. People don't need to know anything else about me.
And we're dressed like a metal band today. No one knows why. So
just a few things for safety before we start. You can private message me for any Zoom issues, and Virginia will be your host today. Thank you to all of those of you that are here live. It means you've got the all access pass, which is a smart thing to do.
You have to do
Well
the weird thing.
And if you're watching this on a replay, there is still time, people. You can still purchase the all access pass. This is not the stuff to binge watch, so have it to watch it in your own time. It's very
Give me a
accessible.
microphone. Your microphone's horrible. It's bashing wind or something. Hold it still.
Is it better now?
Yeah.
Okay. So just a reminder to do share this with anyone you think will benefit from it, because there is a lot of value here for everyday normal people. I can paste the links in the chat. And just before we start, make sure you're resourced, make sure you're happy and taken care of. If you need to stop or breathe or move or drink some water or get away from this session at any point, do so. This is not therapy. It's not meant to replace therapy. It's an educational talk, but we do try to make it fun for you people. And do have headphones. Mark is in the house. So if you're in a room with children or other people, ensure confidentiality by headphones. There may be obscene language coming up. So you've been warned. Having said all this, enjoy.
Thanks, Virginia. Someone actually made a really serious mistake in scheduling. Normally me and Mel, we both have a trauma pattern that meant we had the superpower of not giving a fuck. And we really shouldn't be allowed in public to play, and not during a time when California is awake. Okay, so someone's made a really serious mistake. So what I just want is, like, anyone who believes in the concept of being offended, you need to leave now. Okay, you need to leave now for everyone's well-being. There's going to be a lot of jokes, a lot of silliness, but we're also going to present to you a pretty profound idea. I think it's the idea of the conference that the team came up with that people are really loving. I've tested it in Moscow, I've tested it in the UK. People are loving this idea. And that's the idea of the superpowers. Yeah, you probably hit this on various other sessions. Actually, can you tell me, how many sessions have you been to so far? Can you put it in the chat? And it'd be lovely to have a few more cameras on, if you're willing. I'll say nice things about your beard and your eyes and your glasses and all sorts of things. So please turn your cameras on. Yeah, how many sessions have you been to? Like 1, 2, 3, stick it in the chat. More than 6. Yes, Cecilia's a regular, I recognize her. Amelia, I'm definitely recognize. 12, oh my God, it's not a competition. And obviously you could overdose on this because it's full on. And there's a big difference in trauma education for people who are quite well healed versus people who are like fresh in, deep in PTSD. I've been there, no judgment. You don't do it in groups. You do it one-on-one with a real safe therapeutic container. You don't do it live on Zoom, okay? So like in terms of what you might need, what's best, I regard trauma as having a scale. Any overwhelming event can cause trauma. It doesn't have to be, childhood abuse or something, right? And we all have that. Like everyone has some trauma. Some people do have more or more severe trauma. I've been there. Equally in the healing journey. And that's actually the wrong word, as you're going to find out. Healing is the wrong word. The healing journey goes through different stages. And if you're in that stage where you kind of early, deep, a lot of trauma and early healing, think of those two variables, probably not the one for you. So this is more the one, whether you've had a little bit of trauma or a lot of trauma, but you're more along that journey. You've been, done some work on yourself, you've had some therapy, you've had some EMDR, whatever it was, done some TRE, and you're now going, okay, is there a stage beyond just being okay? What do you reckon, Mel?
I'm really excited with the way you presented that to make sure people are feeling safe and resourced, but also when you're in that stage of just starting, or maybe you're feeling tender and still not used to being vulnerable and being okay with it, in order to thrive beyond that, there has to be a willingness to let go of the trauma story also. And I feel like sometimes there's a desire to make our trauma sacred and sanctify it and keep it with us all the time. But when you're ready to let go and move beyond it without belittling it or having pretended it didn't happen, then you can really be light about talking about trauma. The way I made that joke earlier about getting a divorce, that was one of the most horrifically traumatic experiences of my life. But now, and anybody here who's been through that horrible breakup, doesn't have to be a legal divorce, but there's a point where you're like, I'm so fucking sick and tired of being sad about this. Okay, bye. And it's okay. It's okay to get to that, but it's also a pretty intense process.
Yeah. So, Mel's jokes get funny again is the key message here. And so it's almost the difficult thing here. Me and Patricia were discussing this on the podcast. Is it's almost opposite advice for different people, depending on where they are on that journey, right? And different things will be nurturing at different stages. Like there's a time when things just aren't funny, and they need to be taken seriously. And humor is just a way of pushing them away, right? And it's like actually like sitting people down and saying, no, don't make a joke, man. This person hurt you, and that is not okay. That is not okay. And, I can be really serious with people in that moment. And then later on, it's like, or time to go, you know what? I am a survivor. I am someone that had trauma, and actually taking on that identity. Because for years I was like, I'm not traumatized now. I mean, there's worse things out there. My dad didn't hit me that much. It wasn't too bad, And then actually I needed to like take it on and go, fuck me, I actually have trauma, and the traumatic things happen to me, right? And then there's another stage where you let that go. So this is where this kind of, it seems like contradictory advice because it's advice for different people. And the same thing, like that kind of like softly, I'm your therapist and we have to be really sincere and really gentle. That's just going to piss people like me and Mel off, particularly when we're at this point, right? Yeah. So we like, this idea of superpowers is the idea that it's not that you're broken and then you get healed. And it's certainly not that you're sick and then you get normal. Mel isn't normal, okay? I'm not normal.
I mean, look at my house. Like that's
Mel's a witch, and I'm me, right? We're never going to be normal again. And like people who know us, do you want us to be normal? Is it that we haven't done enough healing? And if we only did a bit more sincere therapy with the cranky neck woman, oh, so sympathetic. Okay, then we'd be normal finally, and we'd stop swearing and stop wearing black and stop. No, you don't want that, and we don't want that, right? Because you get intuitively that our unique gifts, our life purpose, our secret sauce, our glitter pixels, whatever it is not just despite our trauma, it's because of our trauma.
Exactly.
And you get that intuitively, right? And I think it's really important, even if people are early stages, for them to get, it gets fun. This is so weird to hear when you're like, there's nothing fun about my PTSD. I've had nightmares every day for 2 years. Okay, get it. And there's a place where it can become fun to talk about it. Yeah, me, Paul Linden, Patricia, Mel, we're just joking a lot about this stuff all the time. And it stops being healing. Like, it's not healing. You learn something that's useful. Yeah, it's useful. Trauma symptoms, this medical terms, it's not a symptom. It's a useful adaptation. Mel, can you give us an example? What was your adaptation that you could think of as a symptom?
So an adaptation that I had growing up was to learn how to defend myself and become incredibly aggressive and violent, because I grew up in a violent home and in a violent community outside of that home. And I had to adapt to that in order to survive, and then learn that if I'm going to have this one tool, I'm going to have to develop other tools, because then everything becomes a nail when you're just using the hammer. So
yeah, hang in there. So just to jump in, Mel, so the different stages, right? So it's the traumatic event. Then as Mel says, you develop a tool.
Right.
In her case, it's like, we might call it fierceness or aggression or badassery. There's lots of ways to describe it. Yeah. Okay. And that's an adaptive response. Like Mel and I both have a fight-fight response. Okay. Fight-flight's for wimps. We have a fight-fight response. And that's an adaptive response. If people are trying to hurt you, being able to fuck up their shit's a good idea. Yeah. Punched my dad out when I was 12 years old. Okay. He didn't hit me again after that. He didn't hit me again after that.
Good for you.
Last time he touched me. Yeah? That was an adaptive response. A bully to bully. Okay. After that, didn't touch me. So I was like, shit, this works. These are useful. Yeah. I just protected myself. That's amazing. I felt uncontrollable. I felt like a victim and I felt powerless. And now I felt the power. Yeah. Okay. But as Mel said, these are, if you want to go like the nice people session, this is like the opposite of Erica's session in some ways for me and Mel. Okay. Like the other, Patricia always says you can be plus or minus, right? So let's take agreeableness. Me and Mel might be a bit minus. Okay, I'm measured in the bottom 1% actually.
I'm way more liked and agreeable than Marcus, by the
way. You're like bottom 1%. I'm bottom 1%. I did a whole training today, Mel, and people were like, we don't like you. And I was like, I don't care. I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to teach you. Shut up. Yeah. Dutch corporation I was working with. And they're like, but you don't want us to love you? I was like, no, I don't care. It doesn't matter. Fucking my cat, my wife, my dog love me. That's enough, you know? So it was, this is a superpower. Yes. You already have the superpower with trauma. Okay, the problem, as Mel says, is that if you can only do one thing, it's not very adaptable. Okay, so if every response in our case is badassery, or in Erica's case is being nice, and the other response you've got, there's a million out there. Actually, you tell me, first of all, everyone in the chat, what's like your adaptation, but I want you to frame it as a superpower. So Mel's might be, I don't know, how would you frame it? Like mine would be like, you know, Mr. Kick-Ass or whatever, right? Or super, what would yours be, Mel? Super what?
Well, I think if I'm really going to personify that part of me that's like badassery and like, don't fuck with me, it's like, don't give a fuck, Mel. And she's going to like, you know, I think, and when people are putting in the chat now and sharing what they have as an adaptation, please really kind of don't, if there's shame or guilt around it, that's probably the thing that you need to share with us. See how we're being so light about it and talking about what's happened. And, you know, when I say I'm really violent, sometimes people are like, that's fucking awful. And I'm like, it can be, or it can be great. Like, just go into it. I'm reading now.
You're not going into any of the negative here, right? You're just fully celebrating the positive.
Right.
This comes first.
Right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Mm. And give yourself a superhero name, you know, like Mr. This or Mrs. That or Wonder This or Super, you know, Super Tough Guy, you know, give it a fun name. Because it is kind of a persona, right? It's not really who you are. Right. It is kind of a costume you put on. That is one of the limiting factors we'll come to, right? Like me and Mel, we're not like really like, we don't like wake up and like hit the morning with our genitals and be like, fuck you morning, I'm ready to brush my teeth. Doesn't happen. You do that sometimes, Mel? Okay, generally we don't.
Like, do I hit the morning with my genitals? Is that what you said?
I don't know. Like, I'm just had an image, just whacking it, you know?
You know, I sometimes like to check in with my genitals and I ask, like, what color are you today? What color is your glitter? Who are we going to be in the world? Like, that's, wait. Yeah.
Okay, so we've got Shiro, Wonder Woman, the one I can't read really long, super organizer. Daniela, that's good. Yeah. I'm very warm, so it'd be warm lady or whatever, right? So we have something which actually isn't just like a survival adaptation. The reason we call it a superpower is because you're so focused on doing that thing, you get really good at it. Really, really, really good at it. Okay, it's like you do your 10,000 hours in the first year of your trauma. Okay, you practiced and brilliant at that thing, and it's also ethically brilliant. So it's technically brilliant because you get really good at it. Hiding, being tough, being clever, being funny. Being funny is one of ours as well, isn't it? Right? We're super funny, let's face it. Okay, and you get as hilarious as we are, you know, or as clever as Daniela is, or whatever it is. You get really good at it, but it's also ethically brilliant because it keeps you safe. I like to say it saves a child. Isn't that beautiful?
I think that's an amazing reframe you're talking about, as opposed to how we've almost demonized those parts of ourselves and we've put the shame, we've put the guilt or whatever kind of negative projection on it, when you're really like, oh wow, I did this and it helped me get through. That's amazing. Now what can I do with it?
So fully getting, and sometimes we say to people like, thank your trauma, bow to your trauma, love your trauma, write your trauma a love letter, the trauma response, not the thing that hurt you. Yeah, the trauma response, write it a love letter. Okay, make it into a superhero, draw it as a superhero, see it as your savior because it was. Okay, that is the most accurate representation, not an illness. What a silly representation. What a silly idea. It doesn't make sense to call it an illness. So why do people call it an illness? Well, if it's not all good, right? Why is it not all good? Because every superpower is this two or three issues. One is you lose freedom. Okay, the trauma response isn't an option, it's a must or a have to. And it's always done with this slightly neurotic charge. There's the big difference between someone loving you because they want to and someone loving you because that's the only way they can stay safe. It feels different for everyone. Yeah, and actually, here's the interesting thing. This charge makes it actually a bit less of a superhero than it could be. Like, who's tougher? The tough guy who knows he's a tough guy and doesn't have to do it or doesn't have to prove anything? You know, I go to AA meetings and there's some guys that are like, yeah, I've been behind the door, you know, I've been in jail a few times. You know, I'm a geezer, but you know, these days I don't mess anyone up.
Not your jail voice, because it's awful.
Fuck it, it's a great jail voice. That's how he speaks, London. So these guys, they were much tougher than the young guy who's full of bravado, right? Because it's like they've learned they don't have to do it. Yeah. When toughness is an option, it's like it's more tough. The same with niceness. When someone's super nice, it's not actually that kind, right? But when it's an option, it's more kind. So the healing journey doesn't take away your superhero. It makes your superhero even superer. Is that a word? Superer.
Super. I think what I'm really hooking into, and I love, it's very meaty, is that neurotic charge that you're talking about. It's when there's a compulsion or impulsivity to the adaptation, your superpower, when it's the only thing you know how to do, then you're not in choice anymore. And I think that's what that neurotic charge is. And when you are able to put yourself in a place of neutrality and release some of that neuroses, then you open up to many choices and using other powers.
Right. And you know, if you look on the screen, you'll see people's superpowers. Like Arena's clearly super cool. You know, that is definitely a superpower. Okay, Coach Woo's always super helpful. She's always like throwing cool, helpful comments in, right? And I don't know all of you. I know some of you a little bit better. Danielle always jokes about her superpowers being super organized, but it's so different at being organized because you can, as opposed to because you have to. Right? Also, this limitation in freedom means other skills atrophy. So at the expense of your superpower, you lose some other skills, or some other skills, let's say underdeveloped. Yeah. So people say to me, I'm too sensitive. I'm like, sensitivity ain't the problem, bitch. The problem is you can't regulate. The problem is you've got no boundaries. The problem is you can't look after yourself. The sensitivity is fine. That's a superpower. Yeah? Nothing wrong with sensitivity. So the balancing skills is the other side of things, right? So if somebody's super sensitive, they can develop self-regulation. If someone like Melora is a bit aggressive, we can develop kindness. You know, we can develop sensitivity and softness. Erica's too nice, she can learn to stand up for herself. And I've seen people do this. It's just skills. It's not, even this isn't really healing, it's just skills, right? It's the complementary skills.
And it does take a moment, it does take a pause, right, to do what Mark is talking about, to say, oh, wait, let me reassess. Let me take a moment of self-awareness and see if this is how I want to continue to be in the world, or if I am getting tired and maybe I want to develop some other skill set. And it does take a pause in what we normally do. And that's really powerful, that skill to develop a pause first and then decide. That's what we teach in embodiment all the time.
This is just a reframe around learning. Me and Paul Linden. Paul works with the sort of most abused people in the world. So really people that have been very traumatized. And I work with super high performing like executives and coaches and people who can afford my services. And, you know, they're still got trauma. Okay. And what we realized is sort of put the two together. Went, oh, there's kind of a spectrum where people can come from. Yeah. It's like, oh, it's just learning. That's all it is. It's just learning. Yeah. It doesn't mean that it can't be horrific, that some trauma symptoms can't have a huge cost. Yeah. Some, like, for example, there are trauma symptoms that have a massive cost. You know, for me, the fact that I couldn't regulate myself meant that I was alcoholic for 10 years. It's a huge cost. So we're not denying that. We're not saying it's all nice or all easy or all good. Okay, we've seen the dark side. We know how bad things can get. You know, I've been to Afghanistan, Sierra Leone, etc. Okay, Mel's been to hipster coffee shops in the Bronx. We know how bad things can get. You know.
We know nothing about the Bronx apparently, but that's okay.
No, I've heard the Bronx is really nice now. That's why I heard it's like really like cool and hipster and fashionable. I don't know. So the good news is that you can gain the complementary skills. There's two types of superpowers, actually. There's one which you get when you get traumatized. The other one is the one you accidentally get when you have to learn a skill and then you just keep learning. Right? Like, I'm Mr. Embodiment. That's my whole career. Yeah. Why did I start embodiment? Because I was super disembodied. And I was like, well, this is causing me problems. I should get back in my body. Okay. And then I just kind of forgot to stop. Yeah. And now I'm like, okay, we've got a whole career built on what used to be a really atrophied skill. Wow, cool. So two types of superpowers. a few other parts, the post-traumatic growth, like meaning making, helping others, obviously compassion for others. You know, when I work with soldiers or police, they're like, you wouldn't understand. And by the time I've been in the room with me for 10 minutes, like, oh, maybe you would, you know? You know? Also just the ability to be okay with others' trauma. Because in my experience, and tell me what you think, Mel, if someone comes to me and let's say they're a girlfriend and they come to me and they say, you know what, Mark, I trust you, so I'm going to tell you about my child abuse, right? They don't want me to freak out. Actually, the reason they're telling me is because they think I won't freak out, right? Like if a policeman tells me about his alcoholism, it's because he knows I can make a joke about it because I've been there, yeah? So for me, it's like that ability to not freak out when we're like staring at the heart of darkness, you know? Often this slightly wicked sense of humor comes with post-traumatic growth as well. And sometimes people feel like it's like laughing at people who have been hurt. It's really not. Don't misunderstand it at that. The heart is.
No, I think that's exactly what you were talking about. I'm sorry to leap in, but you had asked me to leap in.
Perfect.
But the whole idea of not making the trauma so sacred, like you can't poke fun at it or laugh at it. Now, obviously you have to wait till you're at a certain point with that in terms of your journey and your tenderness around it. But once you can get there, it's a pretty good indicator that you're ready to really move on and develop other skill sets. And what Mark just said about staring into the abyss, there's so much power in being able to witness somebody else's story without falling apart or having to respond immediately, to just hold space for them and so that they can share. And you can go, yeah, I've experienced some of that too, even if the details aren't the same. And that in and of itself can provide a platform for growth and progression.
This is kind of common sense in a way, right? Like, have you ever met someone that kind of had the scars and they'd lived life and they'd, you know, maybe lost kids or been in a war or just been through divorce or whatever it was? You don't really know, but you look at them and you go, I can trust this person. This person's been through some shit. I can push on them. You know, this person's solid. This person's not going to collapse at the first thing, right?
Right.
So this person gets it. They're not going to freak out if I tell them about my pain because they've been through at least as much. Yeah. Like, be that person. And I think when we tell people that, you know, beginning of the healing journey, if it's like the best we can do is like, you can be normal, which isn't ever going to be the case. You're not going to be normal. You've been shattered. It's like one of those Japanese bowls that gets put back together with gold around it. It's still broken, just put back together better. Yeah. Like,
and there's so much freedom in embracing your, what we call, you know, fly your freak flag, but there's so much freedom in being able to embrace every aspect of yourself so that you can provide that for other people. It is liberating for others when they tell you things about themselves they're uncomfortable with or their history. And you're like, I got you. Been there, done that. No big deal. Let's walk on the road together now. You know, like there's a really loving aspect and a coming together with that it warms me when I talk about it. I feel really like, oh, yeah, tell me your shit. I'm okay. I'm not afraid.
Yeah. So it's a beautiful thing. And I also think it's encouraging. Like, which is more attractive to aim for, normality or superpowers? You say to someone that's had some real crap, like, look, right now, I know you need to just get some sleep, or you need to not be scared of men, or, you know, something quite serious, right? Whatever it is, you need to be able to stop freaking out, right? But in the future, you could be great in a way that most people aren't.
Amen.
Yeah. Talk to a gay friend of mine about this. He runs Gay Pride in Berlin, and he's one of the main organizers of Gay Pride, which is a big festival. So, you know, he's a pretty together guy, does a lot of organizing stuff. And I said to him, you know, talking about trauma in the gay community. And I said, you know, gay people don't go from hiding to normal. He's like, yes, exactly. We are fabulous. We are better than you straight people. You have so much to learn from us. And it was so empowering for him to see that the trauma in the gay community could lead to real positives, right? Not just, oh, you can be as good as straight people. Fuck that.
Nobody wants that. Enough with the breeding. We're overpopulated as it is. But I do love that. I do love examples of when people come from somewhere and they're like, you know, it's like every movie trope, right? Where you're like downtrodden and then you emerge and you become this like badass, super powerful hero or heroine or however you identify with it. But there's some aspect of you that's distinguishing from everybody else. And when you're able to stand in that and own it and just be like, yeah, fuck yeah, I'm amazing. Then it's fun. then it becomes thriving.
Thriving, growth, fun, humor, all these things come in. One word of caution: don't do it too early.
Yeah.
Okay, so common thing is people try and, when they're in the healing stage, try and help others as if they're in the growth stage. Okay, so it's like, here's a test. Can you talk about the bad thing that happened to you without your breathing pattern changing? All right, so I can talk about my dad's alcoholism. There's still something in my voice, there's still some emotion there, but I'm not breaking down in tears. I'm not getting angry. I can feel it in my gut still. There's still pain, but like, I can talk about it in a fairly normal way, right? All the examples I give when I do a podcast or an interview, they're all stuff I've dealt with. Stuff I haven't processed. I ain't talking about that in a public place. I'm certainly not trying to, like, I got Daniela, don't say what they are. I've got some issues. Is that fair to say? There's some stuff that I haven't yet healed as well. Some stuff that I really struggle with. Yeah, Mel, I know. So it's this is kind of sometimes specific to specific areas. Yeah, specific areas. And you could be really great with your issues with men or women, but not great with your food issues. Okay, so it doesn't heal all equally altogether. So a couple of words of warning. One is, don't try and help others too quick. Yeah, if you're still in the place where it's like, you know what, yourself comes first. Okay, yourself comes first.
I would say a final word of warning also is that don't assume because you got a superpower and you handle it and you're like, oh, I did that and I transformed it and I'm great, that's going to be the case and it'll be that easy with everything else that comes along. Everything is a bit of a dance, and it's okay to go back and struggle with other things that maybe you thought were done or that's something new. You know, it doesn't make you any less powerful. It just makes you real. Yeah,
this is a hero's journey, as someone puts out. We do need to wrap this up. There's so much on this. We'll do private Q&A afterwards for people who are in this room. You know, there's one of the things we've got. It's interesting. We were thinking of like what to sell, right? And I said, let's do a really cheap thing just for healing. Let's do a really cheap thing for everyone who may be struggling economically if you've got real trauma going on, because you can't work when you've got real trauma quite often, but hardcore trauma, and I say real. But so we did something really cheap for everyone. And then we went, okay, so people who are a little bit more further along the journey probably are going to be a bit more resourced. So we'll do a bigger thing because, you know, we have to pay the bills. And that one's just different people's journeys. So Paul, Mel, Jane, myself, you know, Patricia, we're basically just telling our journey, what happened, what we did about it, what superpowers that led to. Because everyone's journey is kind of different, but I thought if we have 5 totally different people with different cultures, different angles, different ages, nationalities, genders, etc., then you can look at all those and actually draw out, okay, what might be my version of this? Because me and Mel are kind of sweary. By the way, forgive me for calling you names, Mel. I'm more saying for people who might be watching who think you give a shit, but it's. I
don't. It's okay.
You'll kill me later. So.
With my mind.
Witchcraft. So you're not necessarily going to end up like a witch like Mel or a sweary person like both of us or into heavy metal. You could look totally different. Totally different. That's why we didn't want to have just like one person on the superpowers thing. We wanted like a whole bunch. So we sent film crews around the world. So yeah, have a look at that if that inspires you. And I just hope that people feel like this framing can give them hope if they're in the early days, and give them like a frame for continuity if you're kind of like us, you're just a bit neurotic and you've dealt with a lot of stuff and you're functioning pretty well, but you're like, what's next? Does that make sense? Yeah. Mel, final word?
We're here on the other side, waiting to bring you forward. Come be with us.
We mean that mystically too.
Come do some weird shit with me. It'll be so good. Look, Virginia's like, yes!
Weird with Mel. I want to get weird with Mel. I'm doing a session of mysticism on the last day as well. Another angle. Woo! Mel, thank you so much. I love you, darling. I love you so much. That really is just a pleasure to work with you. I'm not sure if I can release this one publicly. So it's a good job the Atlantic's between us. So what else? We have to finish. We're over time. Boundaries. So that's it. Any technical stuff? We're going to stop the recording and do some Q&A for a few minutes. Loads of stuff coming up if you haven't seen it. Tell your friends, blah, blah, blah.
The links are in the chat if you want to share, do share. And you can find out about the accessible packages in the second link there. So do check those out. See you in the next one.
Thanks, Jenna. 1 minute over. That wasn't bad. Mel, high five. Yay. Did people enjoy that? It's a little bit, it's quite yang with the two of us. I'm so going to get in trouble for calling you a bitch, Mel. I'm so going to get in trouble. I'm going to need like an official statement saying it's okay.
What if I respond and I'm like, no, it's super turned me on and helped me to get through the rest of this session on a great vibe. Like,
I reckon we need a statement like that. But
Mark, can you please salute Michelle from Portland, Oregon, who said thank you so much and it's very entertaining. I'd like this to go on record.
You know what, Michelle, you're going to heal my Portland, Oregon problem. So, I really appreciate it. This is the town I'm most hated in the world. And you're my Portland, Portland friend from now on, Michelle. If you want to be my first Portland friend, I'd really like one, please.
That's so random.
Okay, questions. Let's do Q&A. Yeah, it's not corporate chat, is it, Lisa? Lots of pearls. Any questions? Let's help you guys out. I really appreciate you guys being on camera as well. It really helps us to teach and kind of get the tone right.
No Q&A? No questions?
No questions?
I got one.
Yeah, go on, Virginia.
You mentioned already your breathing changing if you're talking about the trauma thing. How do you know what signs are there for growth? How do you know you're kind of tipping over into the growth stage?
People will tell you, they'll say, you're fucking awesome, Mark. They'll say, I want to be like you when I grow up, Mel. That's how you know. Very simple. Okay?
Wait, I have another way to come at this if it's okay, Mark.
Another way? Like, that works for me. They want to sleep with you as well. Loads of people want to sleep with you. That's the other thing that happens. It's a real nightmare.
Yeah, that does happen too. But here's the thing. This is what I've started to feel once I was able to start envisioning thriving past my own trauma. There was a sense of being able to hold a space for possibility and the imagination was working in a new way for the kind of life I want. Number one. Number two, in a way that I felt it in my body, was that a different version of me would come out. So like when I was going over like the divorce drama, for example, this happens with other things too, but when there's a part of me that's like really done with it, she looks like a version of me that I've never really embodied in real life, but she's got like a leather jacket and a cigarette. She's like, boring. Are we done? Let's move on and be cool. And like, when she shows up, I'm like, oh, thank God this bitch is here. I can move on with my life. We're ready to start. Yeah.
Okay.
I can say it.
I can't say it.
You're my bitch though, Mark. Just remember
that's factually a fact. So the other thing is like, it's not like healing ends and growth starts, because you have the superpower right from the beginning, right? You have the superpower immediately. It's just a bit neurotic. So the key thing I find with the growth section is that it becomes a choice, right? Like me and Mel can actually not have fights, right? We can actually be intimate and tender and vulnerable and not just talk shit and swear and, do that stuff. Okay. So that's when it becomes a choice, is when I think you're on that second part, but it's not like you get the superpower, you get it straight away. The trauma reaction is the superpower. Okay. You just got to clean it up and balance it out. Yeah. How do you know it's cleaned up and balanced out? It's a choice. It's less neurotic. Okay. People start to compliment you on it instead of saying, why on earth were you aggressive around that? It's such a small thing, right? Because you're not overreacting or underreacting. You're appropriately reacting in a way that other people can't.
And I would say it makes you attractive. It becomes a more inclusive experience as opposed to excluding people.
Don't tell everyone, Mel. If we tell everyone, it makes them more attractive. We will lose our edge. Okay?
We lose our magnetic ability.
Everyone's doing it, man. It's gonna have no chance. Okay. Are there proper embodiment classes out there? There's loads of proper embodiment classes out there. Yeah, it depends where you are in the world, but ask in our Facebook group. We'll recommend some. Very badass grandmother.
I love that.
Yeah. How do you stop sensitivity to overwhelming? So build the skill of self-regulation. Okay, there's loads of people out there doing work with that. How do you go about building your superpowers? It says they're already built. Okay, they're already built. You just kind of take the neurotic edge off them.
And talk about them differently. Talk about your superpowers. Like, listen to how Mark and I were talking about the reframe, when you're like, oh, there's this thing and I do it. And is there a way you can give it another language that gives it a little more bolstering and positivity?
a really good way is to make fun of normal people, okay? So me and Paul Linden are both neuroatypical. He's Asperger's and I'm ADHD, both of which could have some relation with trauma. They're not totally. So I don't speak too quick. You fuckers just think too slow. Okay, I don't have a problem. You guys are like, hello, this is the speed I think because I do not have ADHD. Yeah, it's like, come on, guys, catch up. So, and you see this with like different ethnic groups, different genders. They'll reclaim a word or they'll reclaim something and say, no, we're fine. You have the problem.
This is a good question in here. What if that alternate identity is one that gets you in trouble, such as drinking too much and the aftermath? And I think that's a brilliant question. And I would say with that alternate identity that's coming up, A, is that version of you getting you closer to what you want? That's a really practical way to just go, oh, is that a good way to approach things? B, don't demonize that part of you either. Integrate it, ask it. What do you want me to know? Why do you do this? Get curious, as my therapist has told me for years. Remain curious. Stay away from self-judgment. That's how you learn.
You know, it will get you in trouble. It's not an if. Okay, so any trauma pattern will make you under or overreact. That will get you in trouble. Make sense? So your neurotic trauma pattern, while it's a superpower, will get you in trouble. It definitely will get you in trouble. Okay. The question is how much, how bad, for how long? So this is when it stops getting you in trouble, is when it becomes an option and not a compulsion. Right? Think about drinking. It's okay if it's an option. It's not okay if it's a compulsion. Yeah. Any behavior. So it's actually a compulsion is an addiction, right? When you're addicted to that behavior, when you have to be badass all the time. It's disproportionate badassery or mistimed badassery that's the problem. So yeah, it'll get you in trouble. Okay, that is the journey. Is less and less getting in trouble with your thing and more using it in service, using it as a beautiful thing. Oh, one more question, then I go to my mentoring group.
That's exactly what Lisa just asked. How do we stop our sensitivities from becoming so overwhelming? Well, there was what Mark was saying earlier about self-regulating and what he just said right now, creating balance. And there's often another, I mean, if I use dualistic language, there's often another side to the superpower where you can start to call in that energy. That's the kind of language I would use as a witch is, okay, like, how do I really want this to manifest? And then you can get picky, which is great. You start to choose.
Last tip. Go to a place where your superpower is valued. So like having really strong fist boundaries, not very welcome in the UK. Okay. In Israel or Russia, not a problem.
Yeah.
In Israel, they're like, you're funny, you're clever, you're a bit mental, you're one of us. In Russia, they're like, oh, you are good, you are not weak like the other English. We like you. Go somewhere where your superpowers are valued. Yeah, and there's a place for everyone. If you're like super contained, go to Japan. Yeah, go to a place where like that's normal and supported. Then you're like, oh, cool. Yeah. Anywhere where you're normal and supported, Mel? No way.
Sorry, I was side chatting. What did you say, Mark?
You're just chatting. Okay, listen, we need to go, guys. This has been really fun. If you do want to help out and tell all your friends, put it on social media, I would appreciate it. I hope this hasn't been too abrasive. We don't normally get let out together. So thank you, everyone.